You know, I was thinking as I went to plan this video, how people often say to me like, Alex, why are you so happy? How do you have so much energy? And in fact, some people even say, Alex, you're too happy, as if someone could actually be too happy. Well, the truth is, I'm not permanently living in some kind of happy sparkles, magical rainbow unicorn heavenland. I'm of course human, and I of course feel human emotions. But over the years, the extent to which I feel like positive emotions and inner peace has greatly increased. So what did I have to give up or let go of for this to happen? And was it to do with raising my vibration? If you've been within a few miles of internet spirituality or anything vaguely new age, you've probably heard about this thing called raising your vibration. Apparently, if we want to be happy and fulfilled and attract all of our desires, you just have to vibrate at increasingly higher frequencies until you break through like a mystical power threshold and eventually explode into God consciousness. We're told that you have to raise your vibration, but what exactly is vibrating? No one seems to ask this question. Okay, so it's my vibration, but I don't think taking a walk on a cold evening with my body trembling is gonna magically attract a brand new Ferrari into my life, although it might help extend my lifespan according to recent research. But what is vibrating? Some kind of invisible energy or magnetic field? My astral body, my consciousness, my brain waves? The reason why I say all of this is because I don't want to give you a load of unreasoned BS where I just read a spiritual book and instantly believe it without question and feed it to you for the clicks. I'll leave that to other YouTube channels. I just want to give you as accurate and authentic, considered and reasoned, effective information as possible to help catalyze your own transformation, transcend old conditioning, consciously create more of what you want in the world, and realize the essential nature of yourself. So when it comes to raising your vibration and what you should give up to do just that, what do we actually mean? Well, I could give you some quote from Albert Einstein like, everything in life is a vibration. But I'm not actually sure if he said that, and I can't find a source for the quote, and even if he did say it, it probably wasn't in this context and it doesn't actually explain anything. I could also tell you that there's a guy called David Hawkins who wrote a book called Power versus Force, which popularized something called the scale of consciousness, which purports to measure the level of consciousness of everything from things to people via a method called applied kinesiology, which recruits testing someone's muscles for strength and weakness in order to determine what level of vibration things are calibrated at. And I could tell you that lots of people use this scale when talking about raising your vibration, but that most, if not all, of these people have probably never questioned its validity or the efficacy of this model. Now, I'm not claiming there's zero truth to it. I'd need to do much deeper research on it to conclude concretely about its validity. But I've got a much more simple, common sense approach right here without having to go deep into hypothetical, hyperdimensional metaphysics right now. So you can think about your vibration as a metaphor. Let's think about it like that. A metaphor to describe your overall state of being, how generally happy and at peace you are, how much you're embodying gratitude, compassion, love, and how much overall energy and vitality you have day to day. The level at which you just have that lust for life, which leads you to discover your deeper aspects and walk your highest path. Perhaps another useful way to use this metaphor is like this. In physics, we know that solids are made up of particles that vibrate around a fixed point and they're densely packed. And as you add heat energy to a solid, the particles gain kinetic energy, vibrating faster with larger amplitudes until they break apart their solid bonds to form a liquid. And as you apply even more heat energy, the particles gain even more kinetic energy, vibrating more intensely until they break their liquid bonds and form a gas. So if we were to apply this metaphor to our own internal states, then you could say that when we're so-called vibrating at the lower frequencies, we have less energy overall. Our body and the world around us kind of feels more dense. We're more rigid in our thinking. It can feel like it takes longer to come up with positive ideas and sparks of insight or intuition. We just don't feel as good. We experience more fear and worry and apathy and guilt or shame, and we mistake ourselves to be our ego, often feeling separate and isolated. And then you could say that when we're vibrating at the higher frequencies, we feel more alive, more lucid, more clear-headed and energized. Our body and the world around us feels lighter. We're more flexible and dynamic in our thinking. Positive ideas and intuition come with greater frequency and ease, and we feel good. We embody the emotions of happiness and joy and gratitude and love, and we're less caught up in egoic patterns and have a deeper quality of presence, and we frequently act from that presence. And you can see, we don't need any metaphysical notions right now to understand that if we're behaving in ways that embody these more joyous, loving emotions, we're more likely to attract more of our deepest desires and be happier in general. And people are more likely to positively respond to us, more likely to want us around and collaborate with us or do business with us, to be in a conscious friendship or even relationship with us, where we're likely to see opportunities that arise in our lives, and we're more likely to have the energy to take advantage of those opportunities. So, what kind of things do you have to give up in order to raise your vibration? What do you have to let go of to transition into happier, more peaceful, more energized and alive states of being, and have that create more of what you want to see and experience in the world? Well, I'm going to share a few things with you now. The first thing to give up to raise your vibration is grudges. It's about forgiveness. It's about not harboring resentment in the first place. And before you say, Alex, you don't know what it's like and what was done to me, let me say, well, no, I probably don't. We all have our own experiences, some which I'll never truly understand unless I've lived it. But believe me, I've experienced some pretty horrible things with other people contributing to those situations: bullying, violence, intimidation, emotional offloading, gaslighting, lying and manipulation. So I know what it's like to be on the receiving end, but I learned to forgive and I don't hold any grudges. If I do start to feel any resentment towards any person or situation, I'm sure to be mindful of it and let go, because I know it doesn't serve me. It's emotional poison. And if we hold on to emotional poison, it drags us down and pollutes everything we do. So it's important to remember, people only act from the level of awareness they have at the time. And if they're currently identified with their egoic mind-made sense of self, then they can act deeply unconsciously with these behaviors that have consequences for those around them. And you can be sure that it doesn't make them truly happy or peaceful or solve any of their problems. Now, this doesn't mean that there's no place for boundaries or justice. Sometimes we need to remove ourselves from a situation or distance ourselves from someone. Someone might need a wake-up call to their own behavior and its consequences. Sometimes someone might need to be locked away for other people's safety. But when all is said and done, we need to end the story in our mind that tells a tale about what was done to me, because repetitively focusing on that mental narrative generates more negative emotions and takes us away from the present moment and the actual life that we have in front of us now. We let go through acceptance of what was, so we can re-enter presence and tap into that inner stillness where all our intuition is and reclaim our energy and direct it towards positive action. The second thing to give up to raise your vibration: reliance on high-calorie processed food for pleasure, and to lean our eating habits towards consuming a rainbow of whole plant foods. Now, I'm not saying we should never treat ourselves. I'm no stranger to high-calorie processed foods, and I often indulge in their pleasure. But if we rely on them for the vast majority of our pleasure, or to cover up negative emotions within ourselves, we unconsciously overconsume and put our body at risk for disease and low energy. And I know there's lots of differing opinions on diet out there, but here's my experience for what it's worth. As I've done the research and steered my diet further and further towards unprocessed whole plant foods, I felt clearer, sharper, more energized and alive. So we can raise our emotional well-being by being discerning and mindful about what we put into our bodies and how much. The third thing to give up to raise your vibration: obsessing about the future. There's a time and a place for planning, visualization and strategy, but when you overthink the future and spend too much time watching the mental movies in your mind about what may or may not happen, you miss the present moment. And the present moment is where your actual life is at now. Law of attraction teachers can have you obsessively visualizing around what you want in the future, to the extent that you end up missing the opportunities and the beauty in the now. Don't get me wrong, it's of course good to plan and take intelligent action that ensures a brighter or more secure future. However, there's an intelligence within you that runs deeper than just the thinking, analytical, wanting, strategizing mind, and it's accessed by paying attention in the present moment to the inner stillness within you, which is the source of all your intuition and creativity. Have you ever had an aha moment where an incredible insight or idea or plan just pops up in your mind out of nowhere? I'm sure you all have at some point. If the waters of your mind are constantly clouded with thoughts of future, these insights never have the opportunity to bubble up to the surface and break through. But leave the water to settle and still, and you'll soon see the hidden gems contained within. The fourth thing to give up to raise your vibration is overconsumption of negative media. Now, what do I mean by this? Let me give you some examples. There's specifically selecting an interesting looking program on TV, and then there's sitting down in front of the TV and exposing yourself to a slew of adverts and shows with just no discernment. There's periodically watching specific news programs or reading particular pieces of journalism, and then there's watching the news every day as an unconscious habit. There's playing computer games sometimes to add fun and entertainment to your life, and then there's using them to unconsciously disappear into fantasy to escape being with how you're actually feeling. I'm not going to stand here and say, don't watch TV, don't watch the news, don't play computer games, don't listen to music with aggressive or sad lyrics. But what I am suggesting is to recognize it's wise for us to be discerning and mindful about what we put into our minds through our eyes and ears, just as we do with what we put into our stomachs through our mouths. Just as over-consuming nutritionally inadequate food can manifest disease in our body, over-consuming nutritionally inadequate information manifests disease in our mind. Of course, most of us have had times where we've plonked ourselves in front of whatever's on or binged watched videos until 3 AM, and we shouldn't scold ourselves for that. There's a time and a place for light entertainment, but a way to become more discerning about what information you consume and just how much is to periodically ask yourself, is this really serving me? Is this appealing to the best aspects of me or the worst? Is this allowing me to live the life that I really want for myself and aiding me in my efforts to positively contribute and serve a larger purpose? And is this ultimately lifting me up so I can walk my highest path? The fifth thing to give up to raise your vibration: inner resistance to what is. Now, that doesn't mean we just blindly accept everything that happens in our lives and in the world and not try and do anything to change it. It means dropping our constant dissatisfaction and unease with how things are now by internally accepting our situation so we can arrive at peace. And when it's time to take action, the action comes from that lucid peace rather than the resistance and the negativity and the useless complaining that serves not to actually solve anything, but to boost up a false sense of self in the mind that gets a fleeting, hollow kick out of being right, but is ultimately generating chronic stress and misery. Let's say you're stuck in traffic. You can't do anything to change it right now, but you're mentally complaining about it regardlessly, as if that's going to magically clear the road in front of you. And in fact, all it does is generate needless suffering. By bringing your acceptance and surrender to these situations, you liberate yourself from chronic overthinking, the stress that comes with it, and it moves you towards a state of peace and happiness from which positive actions and manifestations arise. Now, of course, there are many other things you can do that you can reduce or stop or give up to aid with this concept of raising your vibration, but I think I've covered some of the main ones, and I think looking at the areas I've mentioned and working at them goes a long way to greatly increase well-being. Someone might hear some information like this and have a sudden realization that breaks years of negative habits, whilst another person, for them it might take longer. But either way, when we learn to drop inner resistance to what is, drop our grudges, our reliance on high-calorie processed food and TV, whether gradually or suddenly, we're moving in the right direction. And to help you with that, I go into much greater detail on many of the things I've mentioned here in many of my other videos, so be sure to check out some of my recent content if you're not already binge watching, of course. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos helping you with conscious personal growth. Peace.